The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
Well, there's a great tzaddik in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and I'm sure any of the girls that were in Eretz Yisrael probably went to try to get a bracha from his wife. They say that the Rebbetzins' bracha is bigger than his bracha. Anyway, he's a very holy man. He is the gadol of the whole door. He's the top of the top of the top. And there was a couple that came to him. They were married close to 20 years and they had no children. And they came to Rav Chaim and they asked him for a bracha for children. And Rav Chaim said to them, "I'm really sorry," which is not like him to talk like this. And he said, "I'm really, really sorry, but I can't give you such a bracha. The gates of Shemayim are closed over here. My bracha is not going to help you." So the girl started to, she came to Rav Chaim for a bracha to have children after 20 years, and he's telling her that the gates are closed, that it's not going to happen. So she started to really freak out. She started to cry, to get hysterical. I can't believe this is what the girl outdoors is telling me, So Rav Chaim saw this, and he said to her, okay, calm down. He says, "I'll tell you what, I cannot give you a bracha. My bracha will not help you. But if you find somebody who was embarrassed in public and didn't answer back, that person's bracha will be mekuyim, will come true." So she said, "Well, I'm going to go out to the street and say, you embarrass her, and then she shouldn't say anything, and then you give me a bracha?" She said, "How's that going to work?" He said, "That you have to have siyata d'shmaya. If it happens, it happens. You can't set that up." Okay, that was the end of it. At the same, Rav Chaim is the one who said over the story, by the way. An important bracha for a speaker to say, because all our words come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shahakol ni'eh b'varo. Everything comes from His words, not my words. So I'm just a conduit, just a gutter. And the prayer of a speaker is that the water that runs through the gutter, that couple of drops should be left for me. So my prayer before I walked into this room today was, I know what I want to speak about. I wrote notes what I want to speak about. But not always what I want to speak about is what you need to hear. So my prayer before I speak to Hashem is that I should say what you need to hear, not what I need to say. So I hope that whatever I say today is somebody in this room needed to hear it. Maybe the part about how you treat your parents. Maybe there's one person in here. Maybe the part about Facebook. I don't know. But something in what I'm saying, somebody in this room needs to hear. So anyway, on the other side of Bnei Brak, I'm ADD, by the way, so I will continue in the middle of my stories going somewhere else. Just you have to get used to Wallerstein. Baruch Hashem, I'm out of therapy, I'm off my medication, and I'm speaking already for a long time. And you just have to get used to me switching. I switch a lot, so just hang on. So anyway, so she goes out, and she goes home with her, and she's very broken. Where is she going to find someone that got insulted in public? At the same moment, on the other side of Bnei Brak, there's this young couple who is looking at an apartment to buy. And they're really at the end of it, ready to buy the apartment. And they're dealing with the baladira, and all of a sudden this lady walks in, crazy lady, and starts screaming at this young couple. "This is my apartment, and you want to steal it from me, and I'm going to be on the street, and my 5 kids are going to be on the street. You're not allowed to buy this. This is Geneva. This is my apartment." And she's screaming and yelling. This young couple, they didn't know what they walked into over here. So they turn to the baladira, the one who's selling, goes, "What are you doing? Why are you selling us something that belongs to her?" He says, "Come here, let me tell you something. She's crazy. Everyone in Bnei Brak knows she's the crazy lady of Bnei Brak. She has an apartment. She doesn't need an apartment. We all give her tzedakah. We take care of her. She does this. She runs around. She says crazy things. Don't pay attention." Okay. So they went ahead and they bought the apartment. And they never saw this lady again. 2 years later, this young couple is at a wedding in Bnei Brak. This young girl and her husband. The husband's on his side of Mechitza, girl's on her side of the Mechitza, and all of a sudden, this old lady that scrimped at the girl walks into the wedding and sees this girl that she screamed at 2 years before. And she starts yelling at her in front of everyone. "You're the ganef! Because of you, I'm out on the street, and my children are starving, and you knew that was my apartment, and you bought it anyway." And this girl recognized that this is the crazy lady, and everyone's looking at this girl, and they're thinking, "Oh my God, this girl, she stole an apartment from an old lady." Everyone's, and she's turning all red, this young girl. She's turning all red, and she's about to tell this old lady, like, you know, she has to defend herself. Someone yelled at you in public that you did something and you don't defend yourself, then everyone's going to think it's true. So she's about to turn around and say, what do you mean? The Baladira told me you have an apartment, you have money, your kids are taken care of, leave me alone. But before she got a chance to answer this girl back, someone put their hand on her shoulder and said, I'm begging you, let her scream at you and don't answer her. Now, she turns around and there's this older woman in her 40s, right, who she never met before, telling her, take this hit, get embarrassed, get yelled at, and don't answer back. Who are you? She says, I'm just asking you the biggest favor of my life. Don't answer her back. Just let her embarrass you. So she stood there. Okay, fine. And this old lady was yelling at her, and she was mamish crying. She wouldn't answer her back. Finally, the old lady walked out. The girl who tapped her on the back said, now I'm going to ask you one more favor. First of all, thank you for not answering back, but I'm going to ask you one more favor. Give me a bracha. I don't have children. It's 22 years I'm married. Could you give me a bracha that I should have a child? She said, me? What am I? I'm a young Kailal woman married. What, my bracha? So it's interesting. She said, why don't you go to Rav Chaim? The Gal Hador, and if you didn't have children for 22 years, go there and get from him a bracha. She said, no, Rav Chaim said I should go to you. I said, Rav Chaim doesn't know me. He says, no, but what you just did, Rav Chaim said I should get a bracha from you. So she gave her bracha that next year by this time you should have a child. She got pregnant and had a child. She invited this girl who got embarrassed, and she invited Rav Chaim to the wedding. Rav Chaim wanted to see who gave the bracha, and Rav Chaim tells the story over. The power that when a person is abused in public, is embarrassed by a teacher, by a friend, by a parent, and swallows it, and doesn't answer back, you have a bigger koyach to give a bracha, to break the walls of Shemayim down, than the biggest Gadol Hadar. Now, I said this story 2 weeks ago in my Chabura for boys. There's a young boy that comes to my Chabura who's in a wheelchair his whole life. He was born without legs. And he sits in his wheelchair next to me by my Chabura every single Tuesday night, and it's the greatest feeling. He sits there and he smiles, and last night, after Ma'ariv, he wheels, this is a true story, this happened last night, he wheels his wheelchair up to me, and he says, Rabbi, today I have to give you a bracha. I'm like, a bracha from this kid at any time would be like huge. I said, what's today, your birthday? He said, no, I was on Avenue J today, and I was collecting money. He sits with a little cup, and he collects money, and this person started screaming at me, just because you don't have legs, why don't you get a job? He says, and I was so embarrassed in front of everyone. He says, but Rebbe, I remember what you said, so I just sat there and I put my head down. Imagine a guy, a kid in a wheelchair. He says, I just put my head down and I didn't answer him back. So now, I have the strength to give you a bracha. And he gave me an amazing bracha last night, which I am sure will be Mekuyim. The kayach of a person, the strength of a person. And that, it's not easy. I'm not telling you it's something, it's easy if I prepare you and tell you, someone's coming into the room, they're going to insult you, don't answer them back. But when you get insulted all of a sudden and embarrassed, if you're able not to answer back, and that means your parents are screaming at you in front of everybody, and you just, even if you're right, you just take it in and you don't answer back, it gives you a strength of bracha, of tefillah, that the greatest tzaddik in the world doesn't have.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org